When Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 released in 2009, it was an instant global phenomenon, one of the biggest launches in gaming history, over $1 billion in revenue in the first 60 days, and ghost balaclavas everywhere. But what if I told you, just a few months after its record-breaking release, the two men who created the Modern Warfare series were kicked out of the company they helped build? What ensued was a whirlwind of lies, deceit, and a harebrained plan that nearly cost Activision the rights to the Call of Duty franchise. And all of it was orchestrated by one man. This is how Activision nearly killed their biggest franchise. Our story begins at Infinity Ward, where a bunch of ex-Medal of Honor devs left EA to start their own studio at Activision. Founded by Jason West, Vince Zampella, and Grant Collier, the studio would develop Call of Duty 1 and 2, which quickly became one of the best-selling FPS games in the world. But the World War II setting was getting kind of bland, and the guys at Infinity Ward had a thought. What if we made a shooter set in the modern day instead? But Activision wasn't convinced. Bobby didn't want to risk leaving the World War II setting and fought Infinity Ward at every turn. It was only after months of arguing that West and Zampella finally got their way and were allowed to make a Call of Duty game set in a modern setting. And 2007's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare silenced everyone. Modern Warfare was proof that West and Zampella knew what they were doing. It was a cinematic masterpiece, with one of the most iconic campaigns in all of gaming and a truly addictive multiplayer mode. Modern Warfare all but revolutionized the FPS genre, selling millions of copies and winning tons of awards. But after all they went through to get the game finished, West and Zampella didn't want to stick around at Activision any longer. Speaking of Modern Warfare, if you like guns, tactical gameplay, and girls, we've got the perfect game for you. Introducing Girls Frontline 2 Exilium. Available on PC and mobile, this is a super fun turn-based tactical strategy game. And now is the perfect time to join as a new player. Part 2 of the Corposant major event begins on March 12th, and it's jam-packed with free gifts, including 55 plus pulls and 11,000 plus collapse pieces, which apply over the full 42-day Corposant patch. There are minigames, new storylines, and the elite T-Doll Baltilda Commander swimsuit leisurely heat for free. Plus, the outfit selection voucher sent out at the end of January is still valid until the end of the year, so use it on one of hundreds of outfits to choose from. The best part of this event is the introduction of Voymastina, the game's strongest second-gen doll. She's a destroyer who never takes her eye off her prey. She'll help your team ignore defenses using her exclusive weapon, the 6P71, and fits in with any physical team, which are easy to build and highly flexible. Voymastina is the perfect character for both new players and longtime veterans, so you won't want to miss this chance. Join now, and you'll also get access to new skins that are available for a limited time discount, including Voymastina's Irwin suit and Robella's Enforcer of the Law formal dress. To celebrate the newest character, try the Voymastina Stacker, now with plenty of collapse pieces, as well as tons of new game modes and outfits, plus the Corposant Major Story Update, which adds tons of new cutscenes, animations, and a script with more than 100,000 words. So, what are you waiting for? Download Girls Frontline 2 Exilium now using the link below, and be sure to follow them on social media so you never miss another event. Now, back to the video. West and Zampella didn't want to stick around at Activision any longer. Not only were they sick of being told what to do, they were sick of the arguments, the pressure, the constant breathing down their necks. They wanted to go independent, or at least find a new publisher. Anything to get away from the toxic crunch culture at Activision that was fostered by Bobby Kotick. This desire only grew stronger when in December 2007, barely a month after Modern Warfare's release, Activision went through a merger with Blizzard Entertainment, and the newly formed Activision Blizzard promoted Bobby Kotick to the role of CEO. With this development, West and Zampella were truly ready to leave. Unfortunately, there was one major sticking point. Activision owned the rights to the Modern Warfare series, and if West and Zampella left, they wouldn't be able to take the franchise with them. So, the two reluctantly entered contract negotiations. It was a long, hard-fought battle, but West and Zampella agreed to stay on for one more game, as long as they were given more creative control, as well as bonuses tied to the royalties of future Modern Warfare titles. Surprisingly, Activision obliged them, offering them something no other big publisher would dream of offering. The contract reduced their royalty rate from 35% down to 20%, but it also gave West and Zampella, quote, creative authority over the series. In short, it meant that Activision would only be allowed to make games in the Modern Warfare series if West and Zampella said so. Without their expressed consent, no Call of Duty game taking place in a post-Vietnam War setting could be produced. This was an extremely unusual arrangement for a AAA publisher. Giving a studio that much control over their IP, especially one as big as Call of Duty Modern Warfare, was considered not just risky, it was unprecedented. Which is exactly what Bobby Kotick wanted. He knew that in order to keep West and Zampella around to make Modern Warfare 2, he needed to make an offer they couldn't refuse. Sure, on paper, he was giving them full creative authority, but in reality, he was baiting them, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the contracts were being signed, Jason West noticed one sketchy-looking clause, which basically said that if for any reason West and Zampella were laid off, fired, or left the company for any other reason, the whole contract would be nullified. Immediately, alarm bells started ringing, and West raised his concerns to Bobby. However, Activision CEO gave them a verbal assurance, saying that he and Zampella were, quote, under the same standards that applied to him and Activision's other senior executives, and even told them, quote, don't worry about it. It's impossible for you guys to get fired. You're in the big leagues now. Hearing this, West and Zampella signed the contract, but before the ink had even dried, Bobby was already plotting to fire the two as soon as Modern Warfare 2 was finished, with the goal of cutting them out of the money and taking the franchise all for himself. The plan was called Project Icebreaker, and what I'm about to tell you is going to sound like something out of a James Bond movie, but trust me, it really happened. It started with a man named George Rose. He was an attorney who was appointed to the role of Chief Public Policy Officer at Activision in 2009. His first task, on the orders of Bobby Kotick himself, was to dig up dirt on West and Zampella to find grounds for firing them. Rose was authorized to monitor emails, phone records, and do basically anything to build up a case for terminating the pair without triggering massive royalty payouts from Modern Warfare 2. Basically, the reason had to be legit enough that Activision could get away with not paying them. If Rose could prove that West and Zampella had been up to no good, Activision could legally fire them. And because of the clause we mentioned earlier, their contract would be completely void. They'd be kicked out of the company, they wouldn't be paid the $36 million in royalties they were owed, and they wouldn't be allowed to make any more Call of Duty Modern Warfare games. So, Rose approached Activision's IT department for help, asking them to send over all of Infinity Ward's emails so they could be scrubbed by Activision's legal team. The problem was, Infinity Ward wasn't a part of Activision's systems. Way back in 2003, when Bobby first purchased the company for $3.5 million, he intentionally let Infinity Ward retain their independence to, quote, preserve the magic. He left them in their own offices, complete with their own email servers, and this would become the one thing protecting West and Zampella. Unable to access the servers directly, Rose brought in Activision's head of IT, Thomas Fennedy, to help him out. A court deposition from Fennedy revealed that he was approached by Rose and ordered to, quote, dig up dirt on Jason and Vince to get rid of them. Initially apprehensive, Rose assured Fennedy that he wouldn't get into trouble, saying, quote, Bobby will take care of you. Don't worry about repercussions. And so, Fennedy was given full reign to do whatever he needed to access those emails. He started by infiltrating Infinity Ward's firewall. This ended up being fairly straightforward, but everything was encrypted, so the data he stole ended up being unreadable. So, Fennedy tried a new angle. He reached out to Microsoft and politely asked them, hey, we have this Microsoft Exchange server out at Infinity Ward. Can you help us figure out how to break the password and read the emails? Microsoft responded by asking if Activision had a court order for such a breach of privacy, because what Fennedy wanted sounded totally illegal, which it obviously was, and so Microsoft refused to help them. Undeterred, Fennedy then resorted to reaching out to a third-party security consulting firm called InGuardians. This company offers services where they try to hack your computer to find holes in your security, and Fennedy wanted them to apply their trade to break into Infinity Ward's email servers under the guise of, quote, stress testing. At first, InGuardians had a very similar response to Microsoft. Is this legal? It didn't sound like it, and if they did agree to help Fennedy, they would need, quote, full indemnity against criminal or civil liability. In other words, Activision needed to take full responsibility for the repercussions of literally stealing another company's data. But as Fennedy and InGuardians were finalizing details, it became apparent that they would need physical access to Infinity Ward's servers, which were safely locked up at Infinity Ward's office. So, like a scene straight out of Mission Impossible, Fennedy started planning how they would get that physical access. He and other conspirators back at Activision floated a number of ideas, staging a fire drill so that everyone would have to evacuate, hiring fake fumigators to come in and empty out the building so they could get an agent inside to siphon data or at least take some photos of West and Zampella's computer screens. In the end, none of these plans came to fruition, but the fact that they were even on the table shows a level of commitment bordering on insanity. And for what? What was so important that they needed to access these emails? Well, the release of Modern Warfare 2 was touted as the biggest launch in gaming history, of any media, gaming, film, TV, anything. The game made more than $1 billion, and it's estimated that West and Zampella alone were owed around $36 million in royalties, while the rest of their team was owed even more. This was a lot of money. So, for one, it seemed like Bobby Kotick was trying to do anything in his power to avoid paying them. But second, Bobby wanted the Modern Warfare IP all to himself. Unless West and Zampella said so, Activision couldn't make new games, spin-offs, or merchandise for the series, and he wasn't about to let these two hold one of his biggest games hostage. After months of digging, Bobby finally found his mark. In the months leading up to Modern Warfare 2's release, West and Zampella had apparently been meeting with Activision's biggest competitor, Electronic Arts. Allegedly, Hollywood agent Seamus Blackley set up a meeting between West and Zampella and EA CEO John Ricciatello. West and Zampella were allegedly flown via private jet to Ricciatello's home in San Francisco for a meeting, and then back to LA on the same day, which, according to Activision's lawyers, was part of a wider conspiracy. Activision claimed that EA induced West and Zampella to share Modern Warfare 2's marketing strategy, asking them to intentionally delay the Modern Warfare 2 Stimulus Map Pack DLC so that it wouldn't interfere with the launch of EA's Battlefield Bad Company 2. They also claimed that West and Zampella, who had 2 years left on their contract with Activision, were breaching that contract by meeting with their largest competitor, and that they were planning to join EA and take Infinity Ward employees with them. Breach of contract and insubordination became the official reason Bobby Kotick used to fire the pair. And what happened over the next couple of weeks was an absolute whirlwind. On February 15th, West and Zampella were detained for 6 hours in a windowless room and grilled by Activision's attorneys, who demanded the pair surrender their cell phones, PCs, and any other communication devices so they could be scrubbed for information. Refusing to do so was recorded as an act of insubordination. On February 18th, Vince Zampella was scheduled to speak at the DICE Summit, presumably to discuss Modern Warfare 2's success. Instead, Bobby Kotick showed up instead, presenting an off-the-cuff speech where he extolled to the crowd about how, quote, "It takes a village to make a game. If you think you can do it all by yourself, you're probably the village idiot." And how, quote, "Some ego is healthy, but outsized egos should be checked at the door." Jabs, which, in hindsight, were obviously directed at West and Zampella. 2 weeks later, on March 1st, Activision security guards stormed the Infinity Ward offices to forcibly remove West and Zampella from the premises, marching them out of the building in front of all their employees. Shortly after, the staff at Infinity Ward were called to the office kitchen for an impromptu meeting. When they arrived, they were greeted by Activision executives, who opened with a story about how West and Zampella got themselves fired, and how they needed everyone to stay at Infinity Ward to keep working. One staff member asked if they were going to be paid their bonuses for shipping Modern Warfare 2, to which the Activision executive replied, "No, not right away. Stay at Infinity Ward to make Modern Warfare 3, then you'll receive your bonus, as well as 50% extra to their salaries." When no one replied, the executive continued, saying, quote, "Just take the money and get over it," which was definitely the wrong thing to say. The next day, Infinity Ward employees began resigning, with nearly 40 of the studio's 100 employees handing in letters of resignation over the next few weeks. This was really bad for Activision. They were expecting Modern Warfare 3 to be finished by 2011, but almost half of Infinity Ward just walked out. Plus, many of those who remained were junior developers, ill-equipped to complete a whole new Modern Warfare game that would live up to the expectations of its predecessor. Activision resorted to pulling people from other studios like Sledgehammer and Raven to get the game done. However, finishing Modern Warfare 3 was about to be the least of Activision's worries, because West and Zampella were getting ready to sue, and they were looking to take everything. Apart from suing for the $36 million in royalties they were rightfully owed, the pair wanted the rights to the Modern Warfare IP. Thanks to that creative authority clause in their contract, if they won the lawsuit, Activision would not be allowed to make any Call of Duty games set in the post-Vietnam War era. In response, Activision countersued them, accusing the pair of conspiring to take the Modern Warfare IP to Electronic Arts. Perhaps as a show of force, they also upped the ante, levying a $1 billion lawsuit at EA for their role in all of this. Activision claimed that EA was trying to steal their top talent, and that losing West and Zampella would irreparably damage the Call of Duty brand. Let's just step back for a moment and try to digest the irony of what they were claiming. They believed that West and Zampella were critical to the success of Call of Duty, and that by poaching them, EA was trying to tank Activision's biggest franchise. But at the same time, Activision was trying to fire West and Zampella. Why would they be trying to fire them if they were so valuable to the company? Pretty quickly, Activision was backing themselves into a corner. And on April 27, 2010, 40 Infinity Ward employees presented their own lawsuit, suing Activision for up to $350 million in unpaid royalties for Modern Warfare 2, as well as punitive damage. They believed Activision were not just intentionally withholding their royalty payments, they were doing so as a gambling chip to keep them working until Modern Warfare 3 was finished. Suddenly, it was 3 against 1. EA, West and Zampella, and the Infinity Ward employee group versus Activision, with nearly $1.5 billion on the line. And Activision's case was looking worse and worse. As more details came to light, like Thomas Venedi's deposition about Project Icebreaker, Activision tried to delay the start of the court case. In early April 2012, they asked the court to push the court date back 30 days, which was granted. But then when the new court date was approaching, they tried to push it back another 30 days. This time, it wasn't granted, and the whole thing would go to court on June 29th. Seeing no way out, Activision decided to throw in the towel. According to Wedbush Securities analyst Michael Pachter, the EA lawsuit was likely dropped without a settlement. EA never filed paperwork related to a settlement, nor did they set aside a fund to insure against legal losses related to the case. In all likelihood, Activision knew they didn't have a case to begin with, and dropped it because they knew they were going to lose. Activision also agreed to pay the $42 million in royalties owed to the IW employees. The terms of the contract were pretty clear. Modern Warfare 2 shipped, and they were owed their dues. There was no way Activision would be able to get out of paying them. With EA and the Infinity Ward employee group out of the picture, the lawsuit battle was coming down to just 2 parties, Bobby Kotick and Activision versus Jason West and Vince Zampella. And unfortunately, Bobby's great plan to get the 2 fired would blow up in his face. The issue boiled down to Thomas Venedi's deposition, which showed, in no uncertain terms, that Activision was playing dirty to get the 2 fired. So, just days before the trial, Activision's legal team called a meeting with West and Zampella, and the 2 parties quietly settled out of court. The exact nature of the settlement was never disclosed, but it's clear now that Activision was in fact allowed to keep the Modern Warfare IP. On top of this, we can assume that West and Zampella were paid very handsomely for coming to an agreement, perhaps paid even more than they were initially owed. At the end of the day, it feels like poetic justice, especially for 2 developers who just wanted to be paid what they were owed. Over the 2.5 years it took for the lawsuits to settle, West and Zampella did, in fact, found a new studio with EA in late 2010, which, after everything they went through with Activision, kind of makes sense. In late 2010, they started Respawn Entertainment, the studio that would go on to release Titanfall, Titanfall 2, and of course, Apex Legends. On Activision's side, Modern Warfare 3 sold incredibly well, but failed to live up to expectations. And Infinity Ward continued to release games, putting out Call of Duty Ghosts in 2013, which many also saw as a disappointment, and Infinite Warfare in 2016, which is the lowest rated Call of Duty game on Metacritic. For a while, Call of Duty was on a bit of a downslope, until Activision rebooted the Modern Warfare series in 2019, the same year that Apex Legends was released. Almost as if it was scripted, Apex Legends and Warzone, which came out in 2020, would become 2 of the most popular games in the world, and the 2 studios founded by West and Zampella would come to define the Battle Royale genre, a testament to just how good these guys were at making games that could stand the test of time. Maybe if Activision hadn't been greedy, and if Bobby Kotick had just paid the pair what they were owed, instead of creating a toxic work culture at Activision and trying to screw 2 of their best minds, West and Zampella might have stuck around and continued making Call of Duty games. But instead, we had another case of corporate executives sticking their noses into the creative process and making it worse for everyone.